Hi, this is Max from Practical Accounting. In this video, I want to show you how you can very quickly and very simply process mutations yourself for employees and numbers. And that way you can contribute to a payroll process that is as efficient and good as possible. In this video, I want to show you some basic examples of mutations that occur a lot and that you can process yourself after seeing this video. When you log into numbers, this is the screen you see. We need to go to the employees. You can find them here at the top left. Press on that button. Then the list will open of all the employees and press on the one where you want to process the mutation. When you do, a page will open with all kinds of possibilities. Here on the left, you see a new feature of numbers. That's the employee card that contains several important employee data. It makes it easy to process a mutation for those data. So let's just say we want to begin with a simple salary mutation. We're here with a fictional full-time employee, Lisa de Boer, who you can see in the card earns a gross full-time salary of 2,000 euros. Let's say we want to change that, press on edit. Make sure you fill in the right starting date for the new salary. Fill in the new salary. Let's just say it should be 2,200. Press on save, and now it's processed. Simple. One thing I want to show you is now we processed the new mutation per the 1st of June. But if we would have processed it per the 1st of May, then you would have gotten an error from numbers. And that is because here at the top right, you can see that numbers is acting in the period of June. So when you want to process a mutation per May, then it'll give you an error. So you need to make sure that numbers is in the correct period. So press on that, select the right period, press change. And because in this case, you're kind of going back in time, also unlock the screen here at the top right, press on OK. And now if you were to process the new salary per the 1st of May, then you would not get an error. So what this shows is that anytime you process a mutation in numbers, make sure that numbers is acting in the correct period here at the top right. That's very important, otherwise you could get an error. And you can just switch it back and lock it again. Another mutation I want to show you is a contract extension. Here in the employee card, you see a section of the contract. If you press on the edit button, you would alter the current contract, but we don't want to do that. We want to add a new one. Press on open page to do that. Take a look at the section contract, press on add contract, fill in the right starting date, fill in the right end date. Let's just say it should be a contract of 2 years. Make sure you let us know if it's a temporary contract or a permanent contract, and let us know whether it's a written contract or not. With written contract, it is meant that the contract is signed by the employer and the employee. We advise you always do that, then press on yes, and you can leave the contract hours per week blank. Press save, and now you've processed the contract extension. Another important mutation can be to change some of the personnel data. Here you see in the card already some examples, the birth date, the date of birth, the address, the bank account. If we'll just press on the edit here button next to the date of birth, you see a lot of possibilities. You can change the country of birth, the nationality, that's important. You can also add phone numbers and email addresses here. So just fill it in however you want to and press save. Another mutation can be the address. What if somebody moves to another address? Then press on open page next to the address. Press on new address, fill it in completely, press on save, and make sure the new address is checked and that the old address is not checked. That's important. Another thing is if somebody changes their bank account number, then you can press here on new bank account, fill in the IBAN number right here next to IBAN number. And if it's a foreign account, Make sure you select the right country and the BYC code so you can process that correctly and press on save. Just keep in mind that if you change the bank account here, that does not mean the bank account is changed in your accounting software. So for example, if you work with our accounting software, Yuki, just let us know when a bank account of an employee needs to be changed. So you make sure that any payments to a wrong bank account number will be avoided. So yes, change the numbers, but also make sure it is changed in your accounting software. That's important to keep in mind. Another important mutation can be the weekly schedule. You see that also here in the employee card. If you want to change that, press on edit, fill in the right start date of the new schedule, fill in the new hours per week. Let's say she should work 32 hours per week. You can see numbers, calculates the amount of hours per day, but I'd advise you to change that. For example, if somebody works 4 times 8 hours and doesn't work on Friday, do change that for both weeks. So just make it as accurate as possible. And keep in mind that if you're dealing with an employee with a 0-hour contract, you can just leave this at 0. This only concerns the fixed hours per week for those employees. Employees with 0-hour contracts, this should just be 0. So keep that in mind. Press on save, and now you've processed the new schedule. Another mutation is an employee login for numbers. Here you see at the top of the card that Lisa doesn't have a login at the moment. Press on create, add the email of the employee, select the right language, and you can select the user template. There are 2 options, payslip viewer or medewerker login. That's Dutch for employee login. When you select the payslip viewer, the employee can see their payslips and their annual statement. They can do nothing more than that. If you select medewerker login, they can do that, but they can also maybe file expense declarations or give you a change of their address via the system. So they have a little more possibilities. And if you want your employees to be able to file expense declarations, just let us know and we can make sure they can do that. So just select the right template, press on create account and OK. And then the employee will receive an email from numbers on that email account to activate their numbers account. Another mutation that I want to show you are the wage components. Those are important. Here you see a white sheet with wage components. Let's just press on the plus button here next to variable. Then the list will open with wage codes. These are in Dutch, so I'll just guide you through some of these. Here you have a bonus, onkostenvergoeding, that's an expense compensation, reiskostenvergoeding, travel compensation, inhouding boete, that's the retention of a fine that the employee made with, for example, a company car. So you can then add a wage code. Let's just say she should receive a travel compensation of 40 euros this month. Press on comment to add a comment. Let's just say those are the travel costs of April 2023. If you have an attachment, click on attachment and add the file right here. And you can press on add, and now you see here that you've added travel compensation of 40 euros, and that wage code will be added to their payslip. Another thing I want to show you, if we go back, is the inhouding boete. That's the retention of a fine. So let's say she cost a fine for the company car, and you want to retain that from her wages. It would not be sufficient to just simply add the amount of the fine here. You would also have to add a minus symbol, because if you don't do that, the amount of money is simply paid out to the employee instead of retained. So make sure If anything needs to be held back from the salary, make sure you add a minus. Very important. Press on add. Now that's added. Um, Another thing here at the top, you see also a possibility to add fixed wage components. This is exactly the same idea, but if you add it to fixed, then it's added for this month and all the following months. Until you want it to be stopped, you can let us know when it should be stopped. So, for example, if you should receive a travel compensation every month, you could just add it to fixed and you don't have to add it to variable. Whenever you've added wage components or did any kind of mutation, we advise you to check the interactive payslip. Press on payslips here at the top left, and then the interactive payslip will be generated. This means that it doesn't mean that the payslip is created. This just shows how the payslip will look like if it were to be created at this moment. So this is a good way for you to check if your mutations were processed correctly. Here at the bottom, you see a travel compensation of 40 euros below payment and an inhouding boete below retention. So if you didn't add that minus, the 100 euros would be beneath payment. And that's of course not what you want. So check the interactive payslip anytime you process a mutation. I also want to show you the hour components. I just showed you the wage components. If we go to the fictional 0-hour contract, Peter Puck, you see here the white sheet with extra hours and days. Press on the plus next to hours. You can process the amount of worked hours. Let's just say he worked 20 hours. That's gewerkte uren is Dutch for that. And if you did that for a 0-hour contract, you also need the amount of work days. So you can just add that. In another video, I'll show you a more efficient way to process worked hours and days for 0-hour contracts. But this just illustrates how our components work. If you press on hours again, you see also a possibility for uitbetalen vakantieuren. That's the payment of holiday hours. You can pay the statutory, the non-statutory holiday hours. You can pay that while someone is still employed with you, or you can pay the holiday hours when someone leaves your company. So it's not allowed to pay out the statutory holiday hours while someone is still employed you, so that you can keep that in mind. Just fill that in, press on save, and now that's processed. Final mutation I want to show is what about the wage tax. Let's just open it right here. Wage tax rebate. That's English for the loonheffingskorting in Dutch. So what if someone has 2 employers? They can only apply the wage tax rebate at one of the employers. And if they don't want to process it for you with your company, then you can just not check it anymore, press on save. Now the wage tax rebate or the loonheffingskorting is not applied anymore. So that's simple. Final thing I want to say is that anytime there's a mutation needed regarding leave for pregnancy or birth or parent leave, just leave that to us. Tell us what needs to be processed because the rules are quite complex, so don't try and do that yourself. Final thing I want to say is that we've also written blogs on our website of Practical, also about payroll subjects. So please do check that out because that contains important information as well. And if you've got any questions about features and numbers or payroll law, then just let us know. But this was a good video to show you the basic mutations that you can now process yourself in numbers. And if you have any questions, please let us know.